So folks, once upon a time, I was actually a student. I studied business studies at university in the UK, and obviously I had a lot of sort of challenges throughout that. I wasn't necessarily a very academic person, but what I wanted to do is condense some of my most recommended things for students at university or college that are looking to be productive, sort of condense that down into 5 tips that I recommend. Now, before we begin, today's video is sponsored by Supernotes. Here's a little bit more about them. So this month we're sponsored by Supernotes, and they're offering a generous 50% off with their student discount. Now Supernotes is a social note-taking application perfect for students and social note-takers alike. Now what makes Supernotes special? They have things called note cards, which can be customized with tags, colors and more. A very minimalistic style, but has a lot of power behind it. You can even use a command prompt to find them easily and filter them down by tags for specific types of lessons and also lectures that you may be going to. You can also collaborate with friends inside of Supernotes, allowing you to share a note with them, allowing you to collaborate in real time with others. And the great thing is you can get Supernotes for free, but if you do upgrade to their yearly unlimited plan, you'll receive a 30-minute one-to-one call with the founders to walk through the application and discuss your productivity workflow. I've had Tobias and Connor on before here on the channel, and it's been a pleasure speaking to them. That time alone will be worth the upgrade to really customize your productivity workflow. So a huge thanks to Supernotes, and let your thoughts free with the application. You can find the link in the description below. So my first tip for students looking to be a little bit more productive at university is to make, number one, to make everything searchable. Now, what I mean by that is very simply to be able to capture things like, for example, documents, notes, files, and things that just fall on your lap, because high chances are you might need them for the future. As I was at university, I captured a lot of stuff through Evernote, and I can't tell you how useful it is for being able to find that later. And it helps to keep you organized whilst you're at university or college, especially things like student loan company information, or maybe national insurance numbers, or things like that you just like don't think about, and you think you can sort of keep an eye on them through sort of document format. You'll be surprised when you move during university how many times you might lose something. So I would try and make anything that falls on your lap searchable. And you can do that through uploading it to things like Google Drive, or whether you want to use Notion, Evernote, there's other tools out there. But I'd recommend finding a sort of document storage to be able to keep track and sort of on top of everything. My second tip is to set yourself some goals. Whilst you're at university, a lot of your attention goes onto the academic side of it. As I said, never really was academic. I attended very few lectures. However, I always did sort of the work that was needed, and I set myself some goals, and I'm not necessarily saying they all worked out, as in, some of them obviously deviated. I obviously changed sort of ideas and what I was doing, but each time I set goals, it was always pushing me towards a new limit. And obviously when I look back, it makes more sense, but as you look forward, it doesn't necessarily make entire sense. But setting yourself some sort of goals to aim for, whether they're monthly goals, quarterly goals, or yearly goals, can have a huge impact on the way that you use your time at university. A lot of the time when we have downtime at university, we tend to party or relax or chill, and there is enough time to do that. There's definitely enough time to do that. But at the same time, setting yourself some real simple stuff to keep an eye on and sort of target towards, whether that's learning a language, or joining a new soccer team, or a new sort of club, or maybe even trying to become the sort of head of a club or president of a society, can really help you towards your long-term goals in the future. Number 3 is to keep a journal. Now, I didn't really keep a journal as much as I could have whilst I was at university. I maybe did an entry every sort of 4 or 5 days. But actually, I find it to be one of the best sort of ways to keep an eye on sort of long-term goals, but also to keep an eye on myself, because obviously, being able to sort of talk through a problem or something that's worrying you can actually be really, really helpful, especially when you're at university, when there are a lot of pressure on academic studies. There's a lot of pressure on jobs, the job market. So being able to write a journal can be quite helpful, whether it's a paper journal or through one of the apps that we typically sort of recommend. It's definitely recommended to just have that in the back of your mind. If journaling works for you, I'd recommend trying to do it as much as you can whilst you're at university or college. Number 4 is to balance perspectives. Now, one thing that obviously you need to try and balance at university and college is not necessarily being productive all the time. It's not about being productive all the time. It's not about getting the most you can done and being a boring sort of, well, not boring, being somebody that's very rigid in their ways, but obviously enjoying yourself and having that balance of enjoying yourself, but also progressing yourself as a person. I think sometimes a lot of people when they join university or college, they tend to just jump in and they think, oh my God, this is a time to relax in my life. And it is a good time to relax, of course. Least amount of worries you'll probably have. However, it's also a time for you to progress yourself and to test your limits in terms of not testing your limits in terms of making yourself too stressed out, like overly pressurizing yourself. But what I'd say is it's testing your limits in terms of putting yourself under enough healthy pressure to grow as a person. And I definitely found that I was able to balance those perspectives whilst still having enough time to enjoy myself. And I think looking back, I think I had that balance quite luckily, but I think it was only because I got that advice from people who were older than me, who could look back and sort of give me that recommendation. So tip number 5, I'd say, is actually to go to coffee shops. A lot of the time when you're at university, you tend to stay in a bubble. When you're in this bubble, you normally sort of absorb the problems that a lot of people have when they're in that bubble. So for example, I remember whilst I was at university, when I hung out with the people who were stressing about academic work, I would start stressing about academic work. But when I was sort of around people who were in a different situation, again, it's like sort of balancing perspectives. Like for example, in a work situation, they had different problems and different worries. So that helped me to really get an idea, because it can be all immersive worrying about how far you can push your grades to and how far you need to study and how much time you need to study. But realistically, it's really about how you sort of balance those perspectives, because too much of being in an environment can sort of, stunt you. For example, I remember if I would go out like 3 times a week or 4 times a week, I knew that my studies would be sort of go down. And as you can imagine, if you do that, then obviously you're hanging around those sorts of people. But this is why I say go coffee shops, because you can tend to meet people there. You're in a different environment. You're seeing not just students, we're seeing sort of working people and also people who are sort of in different walks of life. And it's one of the biggest things that helped me, and bumping into people, having conversations, even being around other people was helpful, because when you're sometimes trapped in that sort of student mindset, it can sometimes be a little bit sort of narrowing in your focus. So that's just one of my stranger tips, but hopefully you found it useful. Anyway, folks, hopefully you found these tips. They're a little bit sort of against the sort of grain, but if you're a student or someone at college or university, I hope you found them useful. If you have any tips below that you found beneficial while being at college and university, I think other people would love to hear. So feel free to comment and share whatever it may be, what you found helpful, because obviously the comments will serve as notes for others. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Supernotes for sponsoring, and I will see you in a future video. Cheers, everyone.